Okay, well, we are going to get started. We were expecting one more person to log in, and maybe in the next couple minutes they do. They just had a couple of additional slides to present. So first of all, thanks to everyone again for joining us for another online club volleyball meeting. This one being our organizational meeting as we get set for the upcoming club volleyball season. Thanks also for all your work as clubs and as teams and coaches and directors so far in preparing your clubs for the upcoming season. We are very happy that we've just recently seen the high school or the school volleyball season come to completion. Started in September and saw itself through without interruption with the high school provincial championships the past couple of weekends. And for all those that participated, congratulations. We hope you all had successful seasons and enjoyed being back on the court. So after 2 lost seasons, we now hope that we not only start the club volleyball season safely as you begin tryouts this coming weekend, but that we also see the season continue again without interruption through to provincials and nationals in April and May. We know that COVID is still with us, and we expect it will continue to be for a while to come. And with that, we appreciate everyone's adherence to all the protocols and restrictions that are in place to help mitigate risk of exposure and transmission. For those that don't know, my name is John Blatcher. I'm the Executive Director for Volleyball Manitoba, and also online for the presentation today is our other staff members, Scott Koski, Adam Yonkir, and Anthony Roberts, who will lead us through most of the evening's meeting. I would also like to just recognize others in attendance. We do have several board members, including our president and chair of our Indoor Competitions Committee, Roger Labossiere. I believe we also have other committee members on board and board member Tim Awe, and competition committee members Kevin Neufeld, Sydney Purvis, Eku Malcolm, Kevin Neufeld, Carl Fast, and Jared Brown. So thanks to all of them for their work so far this fall in helping put the framework of the club volleyball season together. Just a couple of things as we get going here. In the email that I sent out earlier this morning, we had the general agenda of the topics we're going to be covering. So that's basically what we are going to be. Sorry, Roger and Chris Cara. I had Chris written down, but I skipped over him. So thanks also to Chris. As we go through the presentation, please feel free to raise a hand or even unmute for a minute if you do have a question to ask. And we'll address it at that time. We'll also have lots of time afterwards if there are specific questions about other things that people might want addressed that we might not have covered or covered sufficiently. And with that, in the email earlier today, I did send out, and maybe I'll ask again if she's online, is Heather Normand logged in with the SHRED concussion study? So if we don't have her online, I think we might just skip over that agenda topic, Anthony, and we'll proceed.
Sounds like a plan. We can come back to it if she does. Did you check the waiting room just to make sure?
Yeah, no waiting room, so I'll just try and keep an eye on the participants there.
Okay. Okay. I guess I'll get us started then. So we'll start off with some important dates. As I'm sure all of you are aware, the tryout period does begin this Saturday for 16U and younger groups, and then on the Sunday for 17U and 18U. We will have, sorry, this is actually a little bit of an error here, but on the 13th, we will make the individual registration forms available. The actual registration will open on the 17th, so I'll make that edit before we post the PowerPoint later. On the 20th, we'll have registration for Premier Provincial Championships open in the system. And on here, we have national championships and their respective registration opening dates. So as you can see, in the past, they've been in January, and now we are going to be in the early February. So gives everybody a little bit more time, a little bit of a buffer there between when they get everything started in the system and when they'll have to deal with their nationals registration. The holiday break this year will be December 23rd to January 3rd. And then January 31st is when the criminal record checks and child abuse checks are going to be due. So if you know who your coaches are now, get them started on those, and it'll just make everything easier. Everything's going through Adam this year. So get in touch with him if you're not sure what your coaches need, and he should be able to let you know what they need, what they already have, and you guys can get started on that. March 24th is going to be the deadline for registering your club or team. This is obviously if you aren't starting until much later. You do have to be registered before you participate in any activity, so your actual deadline could be much earlier. That is also the voluntary withdrawal deadline. So if you are deciding that you haven't participated yet and you want to withdraw, that'll be the date when you have to do that. And then the deadline to register for provincials is going to be March 31st. And that is also the roster lock date. So that is when your rosters will be final going to provincials and nationals. Do you want me to monitor the chat here, John, or? Okay, Adam's got it. We should be good. So we got some more important, sorry?
I'm watching it too.
Okay, perfect. A few more important dates, just our provincial championship dates. We are reflecting what the nationals are going to be in terms of the dates and just aiming for a few weeks ahead of each one. So first will be our 14U Tier 1 girls and boys. That'll be April 22nd to 24th. We don't necessarily know if we'll be using the Friday to the Sunday. It could just be Saturday, Sunday, but at this point, we have all of the time booked depending on team numbers. So just be aware of that. And then our 15Us and our 17Us will be on the April 29th to May 1st. 16Us and 18Us will be May 6th to 8th. And our 13Us and potentially 14U Tier 2s will be May 13th to 15th. Even more important dates. These are just the national dates. I'm sure a lot of you already know when your nationals are going to be, but in case not, we have them all listed here. As you can see, most of the ones that we would expect the Manitoba teams to be going to would be for 14U, would be on the 13th to the 15th. Both of them are in BC, but they are at two separate places. And then the 15U through 17U and the 16U and 18U are in Edmonton over the May 19th to 24th. The first wave is going to be 15U to 17U, and the second wave is 16U to 18U. So for the tryout period, which, as we mentioned earlier, begins on the 11th, we strongly encourage clubs and teams to allow athletes to attend multiple tryouts and not pressure them immediately to commit. In fact, any written or verbal commitments between teams and clubs are not official until that Monday, December 13th, after 6 p.m., when the individual registration forms can be completed. That's when they'll be going up online, and you can download them and send them out to your athletes with your offers. Athletes are free to try out for multiple teams. They're not obligated to commit or sign individual forms until that Monday, December 13th at 6. If a team decides to make an offer to an athlete on Saturday or Sunday, that offer has to remain available until Monday at 6. So you can't decide, okay, I'm going to offer this kid a spot on Sunday, and then a couple hours later decide, oh, I actually have another kid who committed already, so now that offer is no longer available. You have to keep that offer available until that 6 p.m. The athlete has to have the opportunity to commit if they want to by that time. Anytime following the initial tryout weekend, if a club extends an offer to an athlete, they have to give that athlete 24 hours. And again, that offer has to be honored for those 24 hours. New for this year, when you send an offer, you have to include this text. We will be emailing it out to all club directors. That is anybody who's completed the club approval form. It'll be like, we'll give you this text. It'll be easy to just plug into your offers. But it's very important that you include it because it helps to educate parents and athletes on what their rights and responsibilities are. A lot of it is stuff I've already discussed. The only thing I'd like to add is just that parents and athletes should make every effort to communicate their intentions with all clubs from which they receive offers. It's just a common courtesy that allows clubs and teams to move on to other athletes as soon as possible if they have to. It's a two-way street, obviously. Really, it's just it's good for clubs and athletes to work together, even if they aren't deciding to go through the season. It's just a good thing. You never know what club you might want to play for next year, right? So everybody just be nice to each other. For RTP protocols, I believe John was going to jump in on this one.
Yeah, so what I've included here is just some of the items that we've presented recently that were updates from our return to play protocols and information with respect to the most recent health orders. And these, we thought that they were the most important ones to cover as you guys begin back on court this weekend. So first of all, related to vaccinations, the health orders do require and still require anyone that is 18 and over involved in sport to be fully vaccinated. And in addition to that, as of December 6th, so as of 2 days ago, all youth aged 12 to 17 involved in sport are required to have at least one vaccine dose or provide regular negative tests. And what we mean by regular, or what the health orders require for regular, is the negative tests should be 72 hours, within 72 hours of sport participation. For those that are 18 plus, there is no testing option, so proof of full vaccination will still be required to participate as coaches, as referees, even as 18U plus players that might turn 18 early in the season or before the end of the season. Full vaccination would be required. Return to play protocols also have been adjusted slightly just recently. So during the tryout period, we have increased the allowable number of athletes on a court. It was previously 15. So during the tryout period, at least for now, we will have up to 20 athletes per court allowed. But we do ask everyone to please consider whether the increase is needed or advisable. So in examples, you have a smaller gym where 20 people on a court where there's no free space is where the free space is really limited. Again, another thing to consider is the more athletes you have on a court, especially if you have more than one or two, or even beyond that, the more athletes you have, the more difficult it is to evaluate them during the tryout process. We also want you to consider management of drills. So how you're appropriately spacing athletes, coaches while they're on the court or off the court while waiting to participate in the drill. Also considered in all of this, in the risk of transmission and exposure is, the reality is some athletes are going to be attending multiple tryouts throughout the weekend. That's what makes all of these, these protocols that much more important. And as we move on, we want to stress the importance of being diligent in maintaining all the protocols, hand sanitization, masks in and out, all of that. So, we can stay open as a sport and playing all season. So I think that's the main ones we wanted to highlight. We do want to stress, I know there was some clarification as we talked about it, just back on that one. So when you're looking at 20 athletes per court, that is per court, and those it's intended to be designated on that court per session for that session. So if you have 2 courts, for example, and you have 15 or 20, they are to remain on that court and not switch over this 6 over there and over there, and you still have 20. They are supposed to remain a cohort of 20 throughout that training session. So we just wanted to clarify that and make sure that that's clear. Okay.
Thanks, John. Okay, I'll jump back in. So these are the age groups. I'm sure everyone is familiar with these as well, but just in case you're not, here they are. One note that we have, Volleyball Canada does allow 2 athletes born January 1st, 03 to August 31st, 03 to participate on 18U teams. Our club competitions committee and Volleyball Manitoba has decided that we will not be following this policy and will only be allowing athletes within 16-month window. If you have an exemption request, you can send it to me. It'll go through our committee and we'll make a decision on it. But it is only a very rare case where we would allow it. So just so everyone is aware. You guys are monitoring the chat there?
Yeah, I got it.
Is there anything we need? Okay, perfect. too far. So a few, just some minor rule updates. Just noting that if there are any exceptions to the VC rulebook that we noted in our club handbook, we will be using triple ball as the 13U age category still. We have some links on our website if you aren't familiar with the format. And again, the rule changes will be outlined in the handbook on pages 7 to 9. There are only a couple this year. VC has included the warm-up protocol for all VC events, and we are adopting it for all of Volleyball Manitoba events. If you're not familiar with it, please review. Essentially, one of the things is that there is no more, I guess, downballing behind the attackers. So it's just recommended that the opposing team will retrieve volleyballs for the other team. I think it'll be very similar to what was being done through the high school season, is my understanding. So just so everybody take a review of that before we get started up into events. And the only other
question on that, Anthony.
Sure.
Can coaches be on the opposite side of the court, outside of the boundary, and toss balls over to libero, or do they got to be in the same side of the court? I've seen both this season.
Okay, that's a good question. Scott, do you have an idea on that one? I'm not 100% certain.
Yeah, you should be on your own side of the net.
Okay, thank you,
So
Scott.
you're going to toss the ball to your libero from your own side of the net.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Scott. The only other rule update in the rulebook is they've added the concussion policy for competition. This is just another thing that everybody should review so they're familiar with it. It doesn't have so much to do with maybe what, I guess, the athlete has to be done in terms of assessments. It's more just how does the athlete come out? Are they allowed to go back in? So that sort of thing. So please review at your convenience. So for referees, it's just a note that the MVOA is always looking to add more referees, especially this year. They're fairly thin. There are a lot that haven't decided to come back for whatever reason. So they're definitely looking for some new recruits. If you know anyone who's interested, please connect with us. There will be some clinics and stuff, I believe, coming up here. If you want to have referees at your event, you can contact Ed Taves here for events in Winnipeg and area, and Bev Workman for Brandon and that immediate area. It is recommended that all Volleyball Manitoba sanctioned events use certified referees because it provides athletes and coaches valuable experience in interacting with referees, which they have to do at provincials and nationals. So if at all possible, we do strongly recommend you use that for your sanctioned events. So for club approval, this is something that is
question
okay
on the warm-up
yeah,
protocol.
Okay.
It has to do with serving in the warm-up. There was a foot earlier in the scene by a hut, and you had to stay on your side to serve, and the other team rolled the balls back. That wasn't functioning properly, so most referees, because it's not a set rule, started letting teams warm up serving from both sides, which is what we did at provincials. So which is it? Or can we use either or, because there is no set rule?
Okay, I didn't hear all of that, but from what I understand, you're asking whether you can serve for both sides during the warm up, or you can only serve to one side and have them the balls rolled back to you.
In the warm-up, yes.
Okay, I'm not certain on that one either. Scott or John, do you
servers were getting half their serves and they were stepping on.
Let's throw that one to Scott as well for feedback. Otherwise, we could look into it and clarify.
Yeah, so the way that under the current guidelines for competitions, so it's on our website there, the guidelines for scrimmages, tournaments, and matches. So you should serve from one side only. You should complete your warm-up on the one side of the net. If the other team is retrieving the balls and rolling them right back underneath your feet, then ask them to roll the ball to the side somehow. But you should complete your warm-up on the same side of the net that you're going to play on, and not switch sides. Those are the current guidelines for right now. If things change, COVID wise before we get around to the start of our tournament season, then we'll update those accordingly. But right now, that's how we want to proceed with it.
I believe that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen, but you're asking if the teams would, at the end of warm up, after the warm up at the net, they would serve at the same time on their side of the court.
No.
Not what you're asking? Okay, sorry.
Scott was correct in what I was asking.
Okay.
I wanted to know if both teams to warm up both sides, because I know after we knew what the rule was, because us referees had a disagreement on it, and he said there is no set rule, but whatever you do for the whole tournament. So we chose, the coaches all chose to warm, because they got balls warm to their feet.
So Scott answered
So
the
I
question
just wondered
again?
if there's a standard use, that's all. Yeah, I'll do with them, but
Okay.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, guys. I guess before we get going, does anybody else have any questions before we move on to club approval? Okay, I'll move along then. So for club approval, it is relatively new for this year. In the past, we've had a club information form, but this year we have a club approval form, which is on our new registration system. So all clubs have to complete that at the start of the year. Essentially, the form just includes some information relating to your club executive structure, club contact info, and your coach certification and screening info. The form just kind of helps us get an idea on expected teams within a club, and hopefully within kind of each division, so we have an idea what we're looking at going into the season. It is required before you can begin registering anybody. And essentially, most of you will have already done it, but if you haven't, the sooner you do it, then the sooner we can get on to reviewing eligibility and everything else. The approved clubs are listed on our Find a Club page as well. So before you're approved, you are not listed there. So this will be new this year. It's going to be with our new registration system. So as many of you have already done, first the club director has to create their account and purchase the club director membership. The membership is upgradable. So if your club director is also a coach, they'll only pay the difference in membership fees between the club director and the coach memberships. And the next step will be to complete the club approval form, again, which most of you have already done. And then we will be able to activate your club portal in the registration system. So once your portal is activated, you'll be sent your login credentials for your account. This hasn't been completed for any clubs yet, but it will be coming out sometime mid next week will be the plan. We will be offering 2 system demos / training sessions for club directors or administrators, whoever it is that you want to be doing most of the work in the system. This will be next Wednesday and or Thursday, depending on which one you want to do. It's not a mandatory thing, but it should help you out quite a bit just in familiarizing yourself with the system. You can just send me an email there letting me know which session you want to attend, and I'll get the Zoom link out to you for that. On December 17th, the system will open and directors can begin to access the portals. So once you're logged in, you have a few actions available to you. You can create teams. You'll be able to manage those teams, and group registration function will be the big one that you'll be using to get your coaches and your players into the system and pay for their memberships. So club directors will be the ones who are responsible for creating their teams, as well as registering the coaches and players and paying for their memberships and adding those coaches and players onto rosters. So this year, it's not all one step as it's been in the past. You'll have to use the group registration. You should be able to add about a team's worth of players and coaches at a time. So it still takes about the same amount of time. So it's not a lot more that you'll have to do. But once you've added them into the system, you'll have to take the second step to actually add them onto your teams. And you'll have to wait for that because once the players are registered, they get an email that prompts them to complete their registration in the system. And only after they've done that will they actually be active in the system to be added to rosters. So initially, the club director will be the only one with administrator privileges within your club. If you do want to have other coaches, anyone else in your club have access, then we will be able to set that up. but initially it will only be the club director or the administrator, whoever it is that you want to be doing it.
There's a question in the chat, Anthony.
Okay.
Will pre-signed athletes be entered already in the system?
No. Yeah. Just
that
because
was the intent earlier in the year, but
well, the intent was for coaches to be able to enter the athletes into the system themselves earlier because they have to pay for the memberships at the same time. But we have delayed the start of registration until now, basically to let other provinces get out ahead of us a little bit and sort out some of the bugs that the system was going to go through in year one. And I'm pretty happy that we did it because they have run into a few little things. So it's going to be a lot smoother transition for us getting into it a little bit later than the other provinces did. So as I mentioned, once the club director begins registering coaches and players, those registrants receive an email prompting them to complete their profiles and accept the waivers, which is a little bit of a new function as well from previous years where the coach just signed off on the waiver for everybody. So this is much better in that regard. Coaches will also be able to digitally submit their screening and certification requirements through the system. And there will be a few of the requirements that are logged directly from the locker. So a few of them we'll be able to know automatically without coaches having to do anything. And some of the other ones they'll have to upload either proof of completion or something like that, and we can check it off as being completed on our side. It will be a little bit easier for coaches to be able to track their own stuff through the system, so that's some nice functionality as well. Players and coaches are required to complete their profiles in order to be activated, and until they do that, they won't be able to be added to any rosters. Following the registration opening on Friday, the event registration will open on Monday, December 20th. So clubs will have that Friday and then over the weekend to at least create their teams in the system. And then those teams can be registered in new events, even if they don't have coaches and athletes registered onto them yet. So as I mentioned, once a club has a team created, they'll be able to be registered in new events. They will be able to register multiple teams into a team into multiple events at the same time. So if you want to register into the Premier and Provincials at the same time, you can, as well as paying for multiple teams into multiple events at the same time. So that should be fairly time saving as opposed to the process in the past as well. That'll be nice for teams and clubs.
Another question, Anthony,
okay.
from Lisa Peters is, maybe this is an issue that some of the other provinces were dealing with or not. I don't know if you heard, but how many of the emails sent via the system will end up in a person's spam or junk email folder?
Theoretically, as long as you are only registering like under 20 at a time, which is about a team's worth, then it should be very little of that. I know the system, from what I understand from other provinces, if they were trying to add like all of their athletes at once, say like 100 of them, they would run into some issues with system timeouts, or it would send them kind of in batches, and the receiving servers would sometimes pick them up as spam. But for the most part, I understand as long as you do it in smaller batches, then it should be okay. Sport Lomo, the system has been in touch with a lot, I guess most of whoever the major services are, and they know that emails coming from them should not be marked as spam or junk. If people do have stronger just filters of their own, then it's possible it'll happen. But everything that Sport Lomo can do to fix it has been done on the front end. A few other notes just on roster size and that kind of thing. So as we mentioned earlier, clubs teams have to be registered by March 24th. The roster lock date is March 31st. Rosters need to have a minimum of 8 athletes and a maximum of 15 by that roster lock date. Rosters must contain at least one coach. If the coach isn't the main contact, then the team also has to include a manager who will be the main contact. Teams can have a maximum of 3 coaches and 1 manager on the roster. One is a head coach, 2 assistant coaches, and 1 manager. And individual registration forms must be retained for all athletes and coaches. It must be available to us on request, but they do not need to be actually sent in to us. Another question there. We'll see if it's...
Does Volleyball Canada allow 15 athletes on roster for nationals?
They do. However, just like ours, you can only have 12 on anyone's score sheet. So you can have 15 athletes still on your roster, but only 12 can participate in any given game. John, you want to jump in for the insurance one?
Yeah, this is a little bit of an update, a little bit of a change from what we've historically done with our insurance, which involves both liability and participant accident coverage. So historically, for our insurance coverage that we've offered to clubs that you've used primarily to book gymnasiums, you've requested certificates of insurance for most facilities now, that when you're booking them, athletes are also covered generally year-round if it's a sanctioned activity. But outside of the club season window, historically, we have not extended the insurance coverage to clubs. Although during the summer months, there has been opportunities to purchase our insurance, for those programs. So we have not also offered insurance in the fall period. So because of that, many clubs do go out and buy their own insurance for the required coverage for facility rentals, especially in the fall, but sometimes in the summer. This is this is something in a positive direction, I hope anyway, in terms of benefit of membership that the board has recently approved. So for this coming season, the insurance coverage will be provided throughout the year for approved clubs. With this, there is an expectation, though, obviously, that clubs adhere to and abide by the rules, regulations, all of our policies and procedures, and this is already expected and required for club approval, anyways. And this would provide liability and accident coverage for summer camps and fall camps. For any camps to be covered, though, they're probably required some form of application. It might be online, permission click. There's certain things like that. There's a few more details we have to work out, but we just wanted to share that with clubs at this time, especially as you start looking at beyond the club season and into the summer and even into the next fall. Okay.
Okay, thanks, John. So this is just a note on roster eligibility and in festival nationals years, which is what this season is. So as I'm sure you are aware, athletes can only register with one club. Within a club in festival nationals years, athletes may not play on more than one team in provincials or nationals, except possibly 14U and 15U nationals, as long as they're on separate weekends. Athletes can play on more than one team within the same age category up to the roster lock date, after which they have to be only registered on one team. Likewise, they can play on two teams in different age categories up until that roster lock date. Again, after that, they have to be registered on only one. Athletes cannot compete on more than one team in any given event. So an athlete can't compete on two 15U teams in one tournament, hopping back and forth. Likewise, they can't compete on a 15U team and a 16U team in a given tournament. They can compete on two different teams in two different events on the same weekend. So if one event is on the Saturday, one on the Sunday, they are allowed to do that. Again, as long as it's in advance of the roster lock date. And after the roster lock date, they have to be listed on only one roster. I'm going to check the chat there. This is for all age categories, Chris. The only ones where in a festival's national year they would be allowed to participate in more than one would be either playing 13U and 14U, as long as that 14U team as long as the 14U team is also going to provincials. And in the case of going to 14U and 15U, then the teams have to both be going to nationals as well. So some of that is where we get to here. So teams and players can play up in an age category at provincials as long as they have competed in those sanctioned tournaments at that age category and intend to compete in the nationals of that age category as well. As we mentioned, because it's a festival year, 15U to 18U teams athletes cannot play in multiple events. This is a VC policy that they can't participate in multiple 15U to 18U nationals. So we are adopting the policy for provincials as well. In non-festival years, that they are allowed to, but again, it's a festival year, so you can't. As I mentioned, you could potentially do it for 13U and 14U or 14U and 15U, but those teams have to be intending on going to nationals. And teams may not play down to a lower age category, which I think was fairly obvious. So a few things just on transfers. Once an athlete is registered with a team, whether that is through the early signing or through signing the registration form after December 13th, they are considered signed with that club, and they can't decide that they want to change clubs without going through Volleyball Manitoba for that. So it is strongly discouraged, but if a release is requested by either the athlete or the club following a commitment, then the process is laid out here. A written statement has to be submitted to us describing the reasons for the release request. This would include things like whether they're planning on joining a different team or whether the club is planning on signing additional athletes. In the case of the athlete, we have to obtain the written release from the club, and the club can determine what their own criteria is for releasing that athlete. And in the case of a club requesting the release, then they have to provide contact info for the athlete and parents for us to follow up with them if necessary. I don't know if you had anything to add here, John, or okay, sounds good. So just a few notes on membership fees. The fees for this year are $81 for competitive members, players and coaches, and $34 for development level, which is all 13U as well as any tier 2 levels. We do offer tier 2 at all age categories. However, traditionally, we've only been able to offer provincials at the 14U level. We just haven't had enough interest at any level above that. What will generally happen is if a team is registered at the tier 2 level and there aren't enough to offer provincials at that level, we will offer them a spot in the tier 1 provincials, and we would not necessarily require them to upgrade their memberships or anything because they wouldn't be going to nationals anyway. We would offer them a spot in the tier 1 provincials, and that would essentially just be the end of the season. I think that was everything we had covered on this one. On to the next one. So membership benefits, I believe John was going to jump in on this one as well.
Yeah, and then this is included on our website. It's just the general benefits of becoming a member of Volleyball Manitoba, and thus Volleyball Canada are listed there. And the primary one that that people utilize it would be the insurance, the liability coverage, the individual accident coverage. If someone does get injured, for example, in your setting as a training session or a tournament, for example, and sprains their ankle and they need therapy, and maybe they don't have personal insurance through parents' employment or whatever it might be. This is where that insurance would support that type of therapy. Or if it's an extensive injury and it requires lots of rehabilitation, this would kick in if the existing coverage is exhausted, for example. The other information is listed there in terms of benefits of membership, in terms of letters of good standing for those that do go play across the border, that is required. And generally, support for Volleyball Manitoba and our programs and operations is a big part of what we rely on the membership revenue for as well.
Thanks, John. Before we move forward, does anybody have any questions on anything we've gone over here? I know I'm going pretty fast, but I think most people here are fairly experienced. So if there are any questions, let me know, and if not, we'll keep moving. I'll keep moving. So for the screening policy, I believe Adam is going to jump in for a few slides here, save me more talking.
You bet. Thanks, Anthony. Yeah, so our screening policy just requires coaches and club personnel to obtain and submit criminal record checks and child abuse registry checks. Once again, those are submitted to myself. My email is in the chat. If you have any updated or pre-existing ones, those screening items are valid for a 3-year period. So if you did get one completed in the last year or two, just find a copy of it and send it to me. It is still valid. as well. So no problem there. If you have not submitted it, you will be considered ineligible to participate in sanctioned age class activity. I believe we did put the deadline as January 31st. The turnaround time, especially on the child abuse registry check, can be a few weeks. So if you haven't gotten those things in process, I would do so soon. The clubs are required to detail the coach's screening information on the club info form, which will be done through Sport Lomo this year, I believe. So our online screening sites that we look for, you can get them done at BackCheck. The link to that is on our website. It will also be integrated through the Sport Lomo system as well. That would be your most ideal screening site to use because it will automatically generate it in Sport Lomo for you. If you want to go about a different way, the City of Winnipeg, the RCMP, Manitoba Provincial Authority, these are other avenues to get some of these checks done.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, but is the tournament back check might also be the much more cost efficient than especially the Winnipeg Police Service?
Yeah, I believe they are. I believe they are on par, but I believe you're right. I think BackCheck is a little bit more affordable. So some other requirements here. In order to participate as a coach, all head coaches must have completed the following certification requirements by March 24th. So those are the NCCP specific requirements. For 13U to 16U coaches, it is the Development Coach Workshop, among other various NCCP modules. For 17U and 18U coaches, it's the Advanced Development Coach Workshop, as well as a number of other NCCP modules. You can find all of that information at the link provided in this slideshow, as well as on our website under the Coach tab, and the coaching certification requirements is the link you're looking for there. If you do not complete these in time for provincials and nationals, Volleyball Canada is subjecting you to a $250 fine. So just make sure those things are completed. We do have the Development Coach Workshop offered online right now that we're taking registration for. So these kind of things are available at the moment. Many of those NCCP modules are available throughout the year, so you can take a peek at what you need. If you ever have any questions, please do feel free to email me as well, as I can clear up any modules that you're looking for, or a general schedule around when they may be offered, and just to make sure you're on track for your certifications, because we don't want anybody showing up to nationals possibly taking a fine for not having these things done without just kind of knowing where and what you need.
John, did you want to keep going here, or what did you want to jump in with Heather?
Yeah, are we done with the coach certification, screening, all the requirements there?
Yeah, I just have a few questions in the chat. So Chris, VC does not require annual criminal record checks as far as I know this year. They're still valid for a 3-year period. Oh, sorry, I see you answered there, Tony. My apologies on doubling up there. Just reading your question here. Is a grace period for first-year coaches still as long as they've begun the processes? That is a good question, so I can touch on that a bit more, Tim. So Volleyball Canada this year, along with last year, before things were cut short, they did require just the trained status as a head coach. So what that means is you need to complete all NCCP modules, including the development or advanced development coach workshop. However, you don't require the advanced development or development coach evaluation. So that's an additional component that takes a little bit more, I guess, kind of manpower to administer. So Volleyball Canada is doing away with the certified coaching status. They are okay with just trained. So that takes that element out of it. There's no more grandfathering in of first-year versus second-year coaches. It's just expected that for this club nationals and club season that you obtain your trained status.
Any other questions on the coach certification, screening requirements, everything? So we're going to back up then and we'd like to welcome Heather Norman, who's involved with a program called, that's involving a concussion study. So it's called the Shred Concussion Studies. And she's been working with lots of different sports over the past, I'll say year or greater than that, doing some concussion studies. Some volleyball players have already been involved with this process, but she is asking, a possibility of having our clubs share the word and get involved with this process. So Heather, I'd like to welcome you and allow you to discuss your study a little bit more.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Thanks for having me on this meeting. I promise I won't take up too much of everyone's time. It seems like there's some heavy content to get through. So we've actually been doing this study since 2019. Unfortunately, some inevitable speed bumps, as everyone has experienced, because when there's no sports happening, there's no sport studies happening. So we're hoping to really dive in back this year, seeing that there are a lot more sports happening, and we're seeing a lot of athletes very excited to get back on the court, back on the field, whatever sport they do play. So we are with the University of Manitoba and the Children's Hospital Research Institute of Manitoba. It is a nationwide study. So we're actually in about 10 different universities across 6 different provinces. And we're trying to get as many athletes, student athletes between the ages of 13 to 18 signed up. So it's a pretty big study. Currently, what we're doing is just looking at epidemiology. So we're hoping to see across Canada how many concussions are happening based on how many hours of sport participation there are. So generally speaking, as you can see on this slide, it is a very large burden on the healthcare system and on youth athletes. 50% of the concussions sustained are by youth athletes in sport. And that's a huge burden, not only on the healthcare system, but on parents having to get them to and from appointments, coaches, teams, school. They miss out on a lot with those concussion appointments. So if you go to the next slide. Perfect. Our goals for our study is, of course, to reduce the amount of concussions. Prevention is the #1 way to reduce the amount of concussions. So just being more educated on how we can do that in each sport. And of course, that starts with knowing when these concussions are occurring and how they are happening so that we can have systems in place. A fun fact about, well, not fun, that's not the right word, but volleyball is unique in the sense that we see most concussions happening during practice, not in games, just because of there are multiple balls flying around and shagging balls and everything. You're not always being prepared for what could be coming at your head the same way you are in a game situation where it's a bit more controlled. So we're hoping to find more of those situations and really narrow down these possibilities so that we can have that prevention aspect. We're hoping to get more youth returning to school and returning to play faster by developing more systems. And we're also looking at biomarkers for concussion and recovery so that we can properly diagnose right away and have that objective diagnosis of recovery and just decrease the disability burden, getting kids back to what they love sooner. So next slide. Thank you. So we're looking for a 25% improvement with fewer, that did not show up very well, fewer concussions, more healthy youth sport participation, and a reduced socioeconomic burden. Next slide. Thanks. So overall, we want 600 youth athletes in Manitoba between the ages of 13 and 18. We are focusing on 13 different high-risk sports, of course, volleyball being one of them. We are more than happy to take multi-sport athletes. And what this kind of looks like, if you go to the next slide, it details what we're asking of these participants. So as coaches and stakeholders with Volleyball Manitoba, what we'd be hoping from you is that you would get on board with this and encourage all your teams and participants to sign up who fit the age category. It does tend to work better when we have full teams signing on. Of course, we can't force anyone to be a part of it, but if we have coaches encouraging their entire cohort to sign on, we find that like team things, they just like to do things together and have everyone involved. So what they would be doing is we conduct baseline testing sessions, and this consists of some neurological testing, psychosocial testing, balance testing, concussion baseline testing, and physical fitness testing. So these are measures that if there were a concussion to be sustained during their sports season, that we can go back and compare these values so that we have that strong baseline. So it's also very valuable as coaches and stakeholders to have that information going into it. And it's completely free of charge. Whereas you can often sign up for lots of these programs through private clinics and they'll offer the baseline testing at a high fee. So that's a big benefit for you as coaches, and also that we do get them immediate access to the Pan Am Concussion Clinic. If any of you are parents, or maybe as coaches, you've seen it as well, they often need a referral from a doctor. Now, whether that's a walk-in at Pan Am or trying to make an appointment with your family doctor and then getting the referral, it can often be a week-long process. And with first concussions, we're usually looking at, a 10 to 28-day window of recovery. So the sooner we can get these athletes in the door of the Pan Am Concussion Clinic at the MTS Iceplex, the better off we can start their recovery and be in contact with the parents, the teachers, the coaches, and everyone involved in the recovery to make it as smooth, but also as fast as possible. So we offer that for the participants as well. You can see the priority concussion care. Myself, I'm an athletic therapist. So even though this is a concussion study, we don't ignore any of the other injuries, and it is throughout the whole year. So even if they are a multi-sport athlete or they're just, playing pickup basketball on a summer day, we're going to look at everything, every kind of injury. I'll do the assessments and make sure that everything is taken care of and we're referring them out to the best possible care. And the kids usually like this one, they get a $20 gift card once they complete the baseline testing. And I will add that there's virtual and in-person options. Of course, we'd love to do everything in person, but we understand it's just not feasible at this point. So we can set up individual baseline testing sessions for the participants as well. I'll also offer that we have done in the past virtual concussion seminar type things with teams so that we get them to all log in. We talk about, concussion symptoms and best care and how, if you're ever in doubt, sit out, all those things for education for the athletes so that they are a bit more aware of what could be going on in those situations. So my email address is here. I'll put it in the chat as well. And I'll also get, hopefully, John to post something generally for us so that you can contact me with any questions you may have. Again, we want as many people as possible because the more information, the better at this point. We're hoping to use this information for policy development and future research. So the more information we can get at this point, the better. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions?
Thanks for that, Heather, and we'll include your contact information and some follow-up emails that will be going out to clubs on an ongoing basis as well, but we will be sending out a follow-up in the coming days, so we'll make sure that we include that, and hopefully you'll get some uptake, and good luck with your ongoing research.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, if we're jumping back into the volleyball specific content, we're on to coach certification maintenance. I believe Scott or Adam was going to jump in here. I'm not sure who, but I'm fairly certain it was not me.
I think we had Scott addressing that one. Scott still online?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Continuing coach certification. It's written down here when you do log into your locker through coach.ca. On the right hand side, you will see the number of professional development credits that you have, as well as the date that you need to reach the maximum number. So you'd either need 15, 20, or 30, I believe. It's pretty self-explanatory. You can just kind of click through in the locker under continuing education. And if you have any questions, you can fire myself or Adam an email.
I believe Adam was jumping in on our Respect in Sport slide.
Yeah, so Respect in Sport, thanks, Anthony. Sport Manitoba does require Respect in Sport. It's a mandatory requirement. All coaches identified with any PSO is required to take this course. Volleyball is obviously no different. It needs to be completed every 5 years. Therefore, coaches who took the online course prior to 2017, you will need to recertify. Again, it's If you ever have any questions or you aren't sure what your status is for your Respect in Sport certification, reach out to me, as I do have access to the database for volleyball coaches. So I can take a look at that. If you're a first-time Respect in Sport course taker, let's say, it is, I believe it's about a 5-hour module that is required. If you need to recertify, it is just a shorter, more condensed version of the course, just to refresh your memory on some of those things. The link to complete the certification is below. You can, once again, also find that on our website under the Coach tab if you're looking independently. As well, this is some information on the responsible coaching movement. Our sport organization is Volleyball Manitoba. We pledge to align our practices with the responsible coaching movement. There's 3 components to it. Background screening, as we've spoken about, just to ensure safety and accountability of all participants in club volleyball. Our ethics training, so that's the Respect in Sport we just talked about. And as well as the rule of 2. So the rule of 2, for those who aren't familiar, no coach is ever left alone or is out of sight with an athlete without another coach or that second coach being present. If you're looking for more resources on the responsible coaching movement, there is a link here. Once again, it is on our website as well under the About tab if you're looking for more information.
John, did you have anything to add on the responsible coaching, or am I jumping into?
No, the only
rankings
thing
here?
I'll add is it's all, this is all obviously part of the, the responsible coaching movement. It's in place, so we have a reasonable expectation that our sport environment is free from all forms of maltreatment and harassment, and it'll also be, our sport is an accessible, safe, and welcoming and inclusive space. This is a big, part of an initiative through Volleyball Canada as well, the whole Safe Sport Initiative. And, the responsible coaching movement is just one component of it. So we have, various information on Safe Sport on our website under About. And there's also a lot of information, on the Safe Sport topic on the Volleyball Canada website as well. So just so people are aware.
Thanks, John. We'll jump into age class rankings here. So we will be going ahead with the system similar to what we've used in the past, using ranking committees rather than a finishes equals points system of some kind. If you're interested in sitting on a ranking committee, shoot me an email and we can talk about it. I can give you more information on it. Provincial rankings are based on sanctioned event results, taking into consideration strength of event, head-to-head matchups, other criteria. Rankings are posted weekly on our website, beginning the 2nd week of March. So by then, hopefully there will be a couple tournaments at any given age category, and we'll be able to get rankings up for people. So club sanctioned events, as many of you are aware, a lot of clubs do like to run their own sanctioned tournaments. A lot of these are the tournaments that our rankings end up being based on, along with our premier events. We do ask that you sanction your events if you are planning on running stuff. That is the way to get it to be set up as a ranking tournament, as well as just provide some level of consistency among how the events are run and everything else, so everybody gets a similar experience when they participate. The sanction form this year is not going to be a paper form. It's going to be done through Sport Lomo as well. So you'll be able to enter all of your event info as well as just pay for the sanction all at once. Sanction tournament results are to be submitted the first business day following the event. This is just so that our ranking committees can take your event into consideration as soon as possible for the next weekly ranking post. Teams have to participate in a minimum of 2 sanctioned events in order to participate in the provincials. There are some possible exemptions to this, usually for teams that are very remote, but we really prefer if you can make 2. It makes ranking everyone just significantly easier. And again, as we mentioned earlier, we strongly recommend that all sanctioned events utilize certified referees. Even if you don't plan on using them for the entire event, doing it for at least the semis and finals, even the quarters, just getting refs in there so everybody has a little bit more consistency in terms of how the rules are applied, and just getting coaches and players that familiarity with having certified refs on the stand. There are things like score sheets, rotation guards, score flips available in our office for your events if you want. Let us know a couple weeks in advance of the tournament and we should be able to hook you up. So here are our Premier Tournament Series dates. This is the current plan. It's a possibility that there could be minor changes here, but this is what we are expecting to go ahead with. I'm not going to go through all the dates specifically, but these are what we're looking for. We have all the weekends from the first weekend of February through the second weekend of March. It actually looks here like I skipped this one weekend in the middle as the 13U event. I'll have to add that in before we post this, but so yeah, that first weekend of March will be our 13U one.
And we'll post this
we are
on
looking at-
the website, Anthony, in the near future.
Yeah, for sure. We'll be looking at around $1,400 plus GST and service fees for the tournament. That's not finalized yet, mainly because we don't know exactly what format the tournaments will have to be offered in yet, but the fees will be around that. Likewise for provincials here, we mentioned all of these earlier, but these are the dates again. As we mentioned, the deadline for registration is March 31st. The entry fee will be that $495 plus GST and service fees. At our premier events and provincials, traditionally teams have been required to provide one scorekeeper, whether it's a parent or someone like that, two scorekeep for each. Depending on whether spectators are going to be allowed at events, we may have to consider exactly how we're going to do that. But for now, we do have score sheet training available. If you have parents who are very interested and they want to be the ones to do it, you can have them reach out and we can do some training in advance so they're more familiar with the score sheet, and it's just a little bit easier on everybody at the event when they have a better idea what they're doing. These are the dates for nationals. We mentioned them earlier, but here they are again, as well as the registration dates. We've included the registration fee here as well. VC hasn't announced what the fee will be for their 15U through 18U events yet, so it's still listed as TBA here. Hopefully they have the info out soon. The official balls will fall in line with what we are using. So for us, it'll be 13U through 16U is the VQ 200W can. It is very similar to the VQ 2000 in terms of how it plays. I think the reason we mention that is because if maybe every club isn't comfortable with buying a whole whack of new balls right now, they can phase it in over a couple of years, and the playability will probably be fairly similar for the events. For 17U and 18U, it's the V200W. I don't actually know if the playability is exactly like the MVA 200. Scott might have a better idea on that, but yeah, so that is the one we'll be using for this year, and just so everybody is aware that they will have to be buying some new volleyballs for this year. VC will have a stay and play policy in effect. I do not believe they have announced the accommodation dates yet for when everything will be opening up for each specific event, or at least they hadn't as of when I created the slideshow. For more information, we do have the link here to the VC Nationals page. They actually have a handy checklist available that you can download and start to just check off the various things that you have to do to in your run up to Nationals. So I would recommend grabbing that off their website as well, and just getting started on the things that you can get started on now. We're just going to mention here that we are planning on hosting a 14U Nationals here in Winnipeg in 2023 for, as we mentioned here, for the 14U event. The plan is for the May 11th to 14th and at the RBC Convention Center. As some of you will remember, we hosted this a few years ago now, and we're hoping to get it back here and hopefully host an event in a very similar success. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to this, Sean, or if
No,
we're
I
just
think you covered
mentioning
it
it
there
in passing.
perfectly. Yeah.
Perfect. I think I'll let Adam take this one since the Awards and Hall of Fame Banquet is now under his purview.
You bet. So the Age Class Awards and Hall of Fame Banquet. Obviously, most of you are familiar with it, but to recognize the hard work and outstanding achievement of our age class participants. It's a great opportunity for our young athletes to witness our Hall of Fame induction ceremony and to get a sense of the value that they can enjoy from lifelong volleyball participation. We did just host an independent Hall of Fame event in Brandon a few weekends ago. It went well, but it was, it's always great to have the youth involved in the event. As we say, it really does kind of add perspective and a little bit of an outlook on where the sport of volleyball can take you in some facets. So we are looking at getting those two events paired back together in 2022. It also recognized provincial championship teams. Also includes athlete, coach, official, team, and volunteer awards. We try to capture a little bit of everything and everyone's achievements and hard work throughout a long and impressive club season. Our tentative date right now is June 12th of 2022, and we are aiming to return that event to the Canada in Polo Park here in Winnipeg. So mark your calendars. Things are obviously subject to change, but we are planning to get both of these events paired back together after this next club season.
Thanks, Adam. So for our winter programming, I'm going to throw this one to Scott.
We are planning to offer our winter programming. Last couple of years, we've run it under the banner of Team BM. So we will have information available for you to pass on, if you would, to the athletes who are unsuccessful in earning a spot with your clubs. This year, with the uncertainty of tournament availability, we are going to follow the lead of some of the other provinces and some other jurisdictions in Europe, and we're going to run the competition in an internal 3-on-3 format. So we're going to train 6-on-6, and then we'll compete on Sundays 3-on-3. And to align with our strategic priorities over the next 5 years, we're kind of shifting the age down a little bit to focus more on initiation players. It'll be 12U to 15U. So we'll have that information up on our website, ready to go at the conclusion of all your tryouts this weekend. And upcoming provincial programs, you can see here, are currently under review by the provinces and Volleyball Canada. Lots of things standing in the way of hosting major events in the summertime. We are committed to the Canada Games program, but all of the programs across Canada, all the provinces across Canada, kind of re-examining how we invest our resources and how best we can focus on getting kids back playing the game, and then with the eventual return to main competitions like the Canada Cup. But it's unlikely that you'll see a full provincial team program complete with travel in the summer of 2022. It'll be likely more locally based.
Thanks, Scott. We'll throw it back to Adam just to give a little chat about our online fundraising auction.
You bet. For those of you who don't know, we are hosting our annual online fundraising auction right now. It launched on Friday of last week. There's plenty of great prizes, lots of things out there for volleyball coaches, volleyball fanatics, and just general interests for just about everything. So all the funds raised are in support of various Volleyball Manitoba programming. Go check it out. Maybe grab some Christmas gifts. You won't get backlogged with shipping because everything is sitting in our office as we speak. So that's a positive too. If you're in a crunch for a holiday gift, either way, we would appreciate the support. The auction does run until this Saturday at 4 p.m. So go have a look.
A question from Tanya, wondering if there are any plans to bring more programming to the rural areas. So I think, Tanya, that's also sort of an area that we want to look at within our strategic plan over the coming years is, what is the activity that does go on in certain communities, if any at all, and how we might be able to support the development of programming, whether you're in Dauphin or Selkirk or Russell or or ebb and flow or wherever you might be, but how can Volleyball Manitoba help with the initiation of those programs? So that is something that that's on our radar and something we're considering.
Thanks, John. Just a few other notes on potential upcoming rules, guidelines, regulations, programming for the 2022 and 2023 season. We will be continuing to review the early signing period now that we have had it in place for something of a hopefully slightly more normal season. I don't think we could expect major changes, but possibly some adjustments around the edges. Anything would obviously be conveyed to coaches near the end of this season, so they are ready for it going into next season. Something we are looking at for 2022-23 as well will be a 17U, 18U Premier League instead of running a Premier Tournament. It's been brought up that there are often not enough maybe good competition opportunities for the 17U, 18U divisions. So this is something that was brought up through our competitions committee, and we had discussed doing it for this year, but just because we didn't want to essentially spring it on everybody coming into the season, we figured it would be better to delay it to next year and give everyone a heads up at this meeting that we are planning on going ahead with it. A few details at this point would be that we would be planning on running February into April, consist of 2 scheduled matches per week for every team. We would be planning on hosting, well, it could take several forms. One of the ideas would be that we would secure gym time and host matches in Winnipeg as well as Brandon. We could potentially do it similar to how Ontario was planning on running theirs, where they were essentially instructed to, okay, you can register for this quote unquote league. We'll pull you up into groups of 4 or 5, and over these 2 weeks, you are responsible for scheduling matches with the teams within your pool. So essentially for them, you would register, and then if you have a 2-hour block of practice time, maybe you schedule your match in with the team for that time, and you let us know, we assign you a ref, and you go and you play your matches and you report us the scores. So there are still a lot of options on how this could look, but my personal preference would be to do it similar to where we have everything scheduled. You come in and play, and then you go about the rest of your training as if you would do it. Teams would not necessarily be required to participate in order to attend provincials. Teams could still attend other tournaments if they were available. It's still in the fairly early planning stages. We would expect the fee to be similar to the size of event. So if you could expect to pay around $400 to go and play in a tournament to play 4 or 5 games, we would expect this league to be closer to $1,500 for the duration of the season. Just so everybody has a little bit of a number figure in their heads if we're looking at it for next year. A few other things just to note that like main issues that in the community that we continue to hear about. Just recruiting, offering spots on teams throughout the off season and expecting commitments from athletes, or requiring commitments, or that spot goes away. Just kind of activity that is really not within our rules that still kind of seems to happen. Everybody kind of wants to come to us and say, hey, this is happening, but no one seems to want to really put their name on it and submit a complaint and then have us go and investigate it. So I would say if you do know something's happening and you know it's wrong, come to us, put your name on it. We can review, and we sanction clubs and we sanction teams for doing these things that are outside of our rules. So just be comfortable coming to us with stuff if it comes to you. During the school season, just we often get notes from school coaches just of club activity and how it can sometimes interfere with their school programs. As we mentioned in our season scouting and recruiting regulations, any club activity during the school season, this is obviously not club teams, but club camps, anything like that, should be secondary to an athlete's school season. That should be something that coaches at these camps are clear with athletes about on the front end, that hey, you should be focusing on your school volleyball during school season. And likewise for school coaches, you can talk to your athletes and say, hey, you know, this is during the school season. I'm okay with you going to this club activity if it's not during practice time, or even telling them that you're not okay with it. If you're a school coach and you have these athletes during this time, you can make some of the rules around what you want them doing. I don't know if you have any other notes on here, John. You might have something, but if not, we can kind of check in the chat there on some of these questions if we have them. I haven't been actually looking, but I see a few have popped up.
Yeah, no, I've been following. Yeah.
Okay, then I guess we'll jump to the next slide here. Anybody have any questions before we go ahead? I love the sound of silence. Okay, a few other notes. I'm going to throw this one to John for sure. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, so just these are kind of save your dates type of things. The first one is we've been working with the Anti-Racism in Sport organization in Winnipeg in the delivery of a presentation on the date's actually going to be January 12th from 7 to 10. It's an evening presentation. We have a facilitator, two facilitators actually from Ontario that are going to be presenting the topic, and it'll be a great opportunity just for any club representative to attend. We will have more information on that in the next week or so, actually. It is something that I'll be encouraging our staff and board to attend as well. And then I wanted to highlight, of course, upcoming youth sport championships. There's two in a few years from now in 2025. We're excited to have both Brandon hosting the men and U of M hosting the women. But of course, this coming March, the men's championship is back again at the U of M after being canceled the day before 2 years ago. So we're excited to have some high caliber national championship events this coming spring.
Thanks, John. Oh, we've reached the end. Anybody have any questions?
Another one here on the chat. Tanya, any thoughts about implementing geographical guidelines so that rural athletes remain in their own areas rather than leaving to go to the city? It makes it very difficult to maintain rural clubs. Lots of athletes are then left without a club to play if they're unable to afford money. I know, Tanya, that has been a discussion, an ongoing discussion with Volleyball Manitoba in past years. It isn't one where we have gotten to a point where we've agreed on principles with respect to this. So I'll say it's not currently being considered, but something that if there's support that we can try and look at for those rural clubs to ensure there's programs for kids, that we'll always consider them. Any other questions on any of the topics? Again, we're going to be posting this information on our website. So the video here will be posted hopefully by tomorrow if Adam gets it up. Please share it. One of the more important things that we'll ask all club directors to is please share this information as appropriate as possible to all of your coaches, especially the club scouting and recruiting regulations, even return to play protocols. Those links are very important for everybody to understand and be knowledgeable about and adhere to and implement as you go through your season. So would like to pass that on. There are a couple of more questions here. Spectators allowed in sanctioned tournaments. That's something that we will be probably looking at as we get closer to February and the start of competitions. We don't know right now what the health orders will be. Certain facilities might have different policies as well. Some might not. Some might allow. Some might not allow. So that's something we're going to be looking into and communicating on probably in the early new year in terms of updated information that we present. So another one here is about, so some of the, one of the things that we, recognized is the likelihood that we're going to have less competition opportunity. In past years, a lot of the clubs that ran their programs primarily out of school-based facilities ran tournaments, maybe smaller tournaments, but they were still valuable and important for for a lot of the clubs and a lot of the teams that do exist. And we do recognize that those opportunities might not be available this year. There might be more limited competition opportunities. What we would also encourage, especially as it relates to competitions, and if there's not as many as teams might hope there would be, is to look at maybe one-off matches or even evening scrimmage opportunities with 2 other teams or 3 other teams, where you could kind of play little evening tournaments or shorter weekend tournaments in during practice times that you might have. So these are things that we might clubs and teams might need to look at this coming year. Hopefully that answered that question. But I think there definitely is going to be issues with access to school facilities, and I'm going to say throughout the province, some rural areas are starting to access school facilities in their areas, but not all. And even in Winnipeg, most public school divisions are still not renting to non-school groups. Ted mentioned his Dauphin team, won't be hosting a tournament likely if they have to remain in the facility that they're using right now. So just as a follow-up to that. Selkirk from Kyla. Selkirk is pending, depending on if tournaments are allowed. So a lot of this is like people are saying, is pending and to be determined. I know there is a lot of I won't say a lot, but there is several tournaments that already are being organized by certain clubs out of BU, U of M, Dakota, and once those do get sanctioned, we will be posting all those details on the information on the website as soon as we receive that sanctioned information. Okay, we'll give it a couple more minutes, but as we wait for any other questions that might come in. But again, thanks again to everyone for your time. We do wish everybody the best of luck as you start your tryouts this weekend. We do understand clubs have been faced with lots of challenges over the past couple of years, and there will be lots of challenges as we move forward. But we do appreciate the role you all play in advancing volleyball development in Manitoba. So thank you very much, and good luck with your seasons. Good luck with tryouts this weekend. We'll stay on board for a few more minutes, but otherwise, enjoy the rest of the evening, everybody. And thanks, Anthony, for the presentation. Very well done. Okay. As people start to log off here, I'm going to stop the video and